You pick up your phone at night for no real reason. Except that isn't true. Some part of you is checking for proof that someone thought about you. A message, a missed call, a name on the screen. For half a second, you feel that small rush of hope. Then the screen lights up and it's nothing. A random email, an app notification, maybe a reminder you don't care about. Nobody texted, nobody called, nobody was looking for you, and the strange part is, nothing actually happened. No one insulted you, no one rejected you out loud. You're sitting in the same room you were a few seconds ago, with the same walls, the same air, the same quiet, but now the quiet feels different. It feels personal. Your mind starts filling in the silence. Maybe they're ignoring you. Maybe everyone else is somewhere with people they actually care about. Maybe you're not as important to them as they are to you. And suddenly, being alone doesn't feel peaceful anymore. It feels like evidence. Evidence that you were forgotten, evidence that you weren't chosen, evidence that if you disappeared for a while, the world might keep moving like nothing changed. That's why being alone can scare you. Not every time, not always. Sometimes being alone feels good. Sometimes it's exactly what you need. But there are moments when loneliness doesn't feel like quiet. It feels like danger. And that feeling is older than your phone, older than your room, and older than the world you live in now. Humans fear being alone because humans were never built to survive alone. We were built for faces, voices, families, groups, fires, and people sleeping close enough to hear us if something went wrong. For most of human history, separation from others wasn't just uncomfortable. It could be dangerous. Alone, you had no one watching your back, no one sharing food, no one helping with children, and no one standing nearby when the night got loud. So the brain learned to take separation seriously. It learned that being left out mattered. It learned that rejection could be more than embarrassing. It could be a warning that your place in the group wasn't safe. And even now, after all our modern comfort, that old system hasn't disappeared. We have locks, phones, cars, houses, lights, and endless ways to contact people. But the body still carries an older truth. Connection means safety. Isolation can feel like exposure. That's why loneliness can hit so physically. It isn't just a sad thought floating around in your head. It can tighten your chest, change your breathing, make your stomach drop, and make your body feel like something is wrong. Because to the human brain, connection isn't decoration, it's survival. There's an important difference between being alone and feeling alone. Being alone can be healthy. It can mean rest, focus, privacy, or a few quiet minutes where nobody needs anything from you. A quiet drive, a walk at night, or a room with the door closed can feel peaceful when you choose it. That's solitude. Solitude is chosen. Loneliness is different. Loneliness is the feeling that connection is missing, even if people are technically around. It's the feeling that no one really sees you, no one really knows you, and no one would notice if you slipped out of the room and didn't come back. That's why someone can feel lonely in a crowd. That's why a person can have hundreds of contacts and still feel alone at 2 a.m. That's why a silent phone can hurt more than an empty room. The fear isn't always about being physically alone. It's about what being alone starts to mean. And humans are meaning-making animals. We don't just experience things, we explain them. A quiet phone can mean people are busy. A canceled plan can mean someone was tired. A short reply can mean nothing at all. But when you're already lonely, those small things can start turning into evidence that you don't matter, that you're being pushed away, or that everyone else has a life somewhere without you. The brain isn't always fair when it feels threatened. It doesn't quietly wait for all the facts. It starts looking for patterns, and if you're afraid of being unwanted, it may start seeing rejection everywhere. That's part of what makes loneliness so painful. It doesn't just leave you alone in a room, it changes the room. And rejection doesn't only hurt emotionally, it can physically hurt. Researchers have studied this using brain scans. In one famous experiment, people played a simple virtual ball tossing game. They thought they were playing with two other people, but after a while, the other players stopped throwing them the ball. They were left out of the game, and even though nothing physical happened, the brain treated it like something serious. Areas connected to distress and pain became more active when people were excluded. Later research looked at people who had recently gone through unwanted breakups. When they saw a picture of the person who rejected them, some of the same brain areas involved in physical pain became active. That doesn't mean heartbreak is exactly the same as touching a hot stove, but it does mean the phrase rejection hurts isn't just dramatic language. So when someone ignores you, leaves you out, breaks up with you, or makes you feel unwanted, the pain can show up in your body for a reason. Your brain doesn't treat belonging like a small preference. It treats it like something important enough to protect. And that makes sense. In an ancient group, rejection could change everything. If you lost your place, you could lose food, protection, shelter, status, and help. You could lose the people who made the world survivable. So the brain made rejection hard to ignore. Pain gets your attention. If you touch fire, pain tells you to pull away. If you step wrong and twist your ankle, pain tells you to protect it. And if you're rejected or excluded, social pain tells you to pay attention to your connection with others. Something may be wrong. Something may need repair. The problem is that the alarm can still ring even when the danger isn't truly there. An unanswered text isn't always rejection. A quiet night doesn't mean you're forgotten. A friend being distant doesn't automatically mean they stopped caring. But your body may react before your mind has time to explain. The stomach drop, the heat in your face, the tight feeling in your chest, the urge to reread the message, replay the conversation, and figure out what changed. Your brain is trying to answer a very old question. Do I still belong? Belonging is one of the deepest human needs. Psychologists have argued that people have a basic need to form and keep strong relationships. That doesn't mean everyone needs to be popular. It doesn't mean everyone needs a huge friend group. It means humans need some kind of stable connection that feels real. A person can handle not being liked by everyone. What's harder is feeling like they don't matter to anyone at all. That's the fear hiding underneath loneliness. It isn't always, I don't want to sit by myself. Sometimes it's, no one would choose me. Sometimes it's, no one is coming. Sometimes it's, if something happened to me, who would know? That fear reaches backward through human history. For most of our past, people lived close to others. Groups made life less dangerous. One person could sleep while another stayed alert. One person could notice a threat before anyone else did. One person could remember where food was found while another knew which plants to avoid. Being around others reduced the weight of survival. There's a theory in psychology called social baseline theory. The name sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. A baseline is the normal starting point. Social baseline theory suggests that the human brain expects other people to be part of how we handle the world. In other words, your brain doesn't see connection as a bonus, it sees connection as part of the system. When someone safe is nearby, problems can feel smaller. A hard moment can feel more survivable. Even the presence of someone you trust can change how heavy the world feels. But when you feel alone, the brain may act like it has to carry everything by itself. It watches more closely. It prepares for more. It spends energy trying to protect you without backup. That's one reason loneliness can be so exhausting. It isn't laziness. It isn't weakness. It's the body acting like its resources are lower than they should be. And when the body thinks resources are low, it becomes more alert, sometimes too alert. Loneliness can make people more watchful for signs of rejection. A strange tone, a delayed reply, a short answer, a group laughing nearby, or someone seeming different than usual can suddenly feel important. When you're lonely, your brain may start looking harder for signs that you're being pushed away. It does this to protect you, but it can backfire. Someone is tired and it feels like they hate you. Someone forgets to reply and it feels like they don't care. Someone cancels plans and it feels like they're abandoning you. Then you pull back, you act colder, you stop reaching out, you tell yourself you're just protecting your peace. And maybe part of you is, but another part may be making the loneliness deeper. That's the cruel loop. Loneliness makes you want connection, but it can also make connection feel dangerous. You need closeness, but closeness is where rejection can happen. So you stay back. You wait for proof. You act like you don't care before anyone can see that you do. For a little while, that can feel safer, but over time, isolation starts to feel normal. Then being alone stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a place you can't get out of. That's why the fear of being alone often has two sides. One side is the ancient fear, the fear of being without protection, without help, without the group. The other side is the modern fear, the fear that you're alone because you weren't chosen, because you weren't enough, because everyone else found their people and somehow you didn't. That second fear can hurt even when you're physically safe, maybe especially then, because modern loneliness doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. A person can have a job, a car, a room, a phone, and a normal looking life. They can answer messages, go to work, laugh when they're supposed to, and still feel like nobody really knows them. That's one of the strangest parts of modern life. We're more reachable than ever, but reachability isn't the same as closeness. A notification isn't the same as being understood. A like isn't the same as being loved. A conversation isn't always the same as connection, and the brain can tell the difference. It knows when you're performing instead of being known. It knows when people only see the version of you that works, jokes, posts, answers, smiles, and keeps moving, but not the version that's tired, not the version that's scared, not the version that wonders if anyone would stay if they saw the whole thing. That's why loneliness can appear even around people, because loneliness isn't just the absence of bodies, it's the absence of safe connection. And humans look for that kind of connection from the beginning of life. Parents are a baby's safety system. That early need doesn't vanish when we grow up. It changes shape. Adults can feed themselves, adults can lock the door, adults can go to work, pay bills, and tell everyone they're fine. But the nervous system still responds to closeness. A familiar voice can calm you down. A hand on your shoulder can change your breathing. One honest conversation can make the world feel less heavy. It's one of the reasons isolation can feel so unnatural. Your mind may understand that you're safe, but your body may still ask, where is everyone? Who knows I'm here? Who would notice? That question can get louder at night. During the day, there are distractions: work, noise, messages, chores, traffic, screens, and people moving around. But at night, the world gets quiet. And when the outside world gets quiet, the inside world gets louder. A thought that was small at 2 p.m. can feel enormous at 2 a.m. The empty side of a bed feels emptier. The silent phone feels louder. Memories come back with fewer interruptions. People you lost, people who left, people you pushed away, people you still miss, even though you don't want to. Night gives loneliness space, and the brain fills that space with questions. Why did they stop caring? Why wasn't I enough? What if I never find my people? What if this is just how my life is? Those questions can feel personal, but they're also deeply human. They come from a brain that was built to belong, a brain that understands isolation as a problem to solve, a brain that remembers in its own quiet way that people survive better together. But the answer isn't to never be alone. That would be impossible, and it wouldn't even be healthy. Being alone matters too. A person needs silence, privacy, and time to think. You need space to become yourself without constantly reacting to everyone else. The goal isn't to escape every empty room. The goal is to understand why some empty rooms hurt. The fear of being alone isn't always telling you the truth, but it is telling you something. Sometimes it's telling you that you need rest. Sometimes it's telling you that you need connection. Sometimes it's telling you that an old rejection still hasn't healed. And sometimes it's telling you that you've been pretending not to need people because needing people felt too risky. That may be the hardest part. To be human is to need what can hurt you. You need people, but people can reject you. You need love, but love can leave. You need belonging, but belonging means there's something to lose. So the fear makes sense. It makes sense that being alone can scare you. It makes sense that rejection can feel physical. It makes sense that silence can turn into a threat. For most of human history, being wanted mattered. Being included mattered. Being known mattered, not as a luxury, as survival. And even though the world has changed, the body still carries that older truth. You aren't afraid of being alone because you're weak. You aren't afraid because you're too sensitive. You're afraid because connection is one of the oldest forms of safety humans have ever had. A group meant warmth. A group meant warning. A group meant someone would look for you if you didn't come back. And maybe that's what the fear is really asking. Not why am I alone right now, but who would come looking. That question can hurt, but it can also point you toward what matters. Loneliness isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that your brain still knows connection matters. It's an alarm, not a life sentence, not a final answer, just a signal from an ancient part of you that still wants to belong somewhere, still wants to be seen, still wants to be chosen, still wants to know that if the night gets too quiet, someone is close enough to hear you. So when you're alone and the silence starts to feel heavy, maybe your body isn't overreacting. Maybe it's remembering not just one rejection, not just one empty room, but the long history of what it meant for a human to stand outside the circle, away from the fire, away from the voices, away from the people who made the dark feel survivable. And maybe the fear of being alone isn't really about the room being empty. Maybe it's about a question older than language. Am I still part of the group? Am I still wanted? Would anyone notice if I disappeared into the dark? And maybe beneath all of that, there's one question even older. Who's with me?